There's a good chance you've looked into employer branding, but have you looked into personal branding inside the talent acquisition function? Sitting down with Magda, who is a solopreneur and business coach with a former background in talent acquisition, we explored just this topic, but more specifically, how you can go about and find your personal brand. Here's what you've got coming up in this episode.
Yeah, in the end, you can approach it from different perspectives. I mean, you can say, okay, is this shameless self-promotion, or is this humble self-promotion, or is this you trying to influence how others perceive you? You know, this is also another part. Or is this are you bragging? You know, you can see from so many different perspectives. So I think that there are great opportunities for companies to bring both together. So both about promoting the organization, promoting the company, but also allowing, companies are all about people. And I know by my own experience that, you know, we were always very keen on finding great personalities, not only the people who do the job right or who have the experience that the companies are looking for, but also personalities, characters. And when people can act as ambassadors of an organization by, you know, promoting the company, but also sharing some knowledge, sharing some activities or initiatives or lessons learned within the company, I think that it's a win-win situation, puts the organization in a very good light, as well as the promotion of employees.
Utilizing Magda's framework and actually bringing it back into my own experience, it's very clear to see how effective this truly is. This episode is going to be for anybody who wants to put themselves out there a little bit more, strive for a little bit more out of their careers, and make generally movements between jobs, promotions, just a little bit easier. So stick around and hopefully you learn and enjoy just as much as I did. Welcome to Tea Time with Talent Acquisition, the podcast aimed at fostering knowledge and sharing stories within the vibrant talent acquisition community. I'm your host, Eden, and for the next hour or so, I'm going to be joined by an industry expert who over the past 15 years has touched upon HR, talent acquisition, people and culture, and now into business consulting. Having personally worked with this individual for several years, I've seen firsthand the impact she's had in organizations and startups that she's helped grow along the way. As an evangelist in all things self-mastery, the topic of personal branding is one that I cannot wait to explore with her. So when you're ready, grab your favorite tea or coffee if you prefer, and join me in welcoming today's guest, solopreneur and business consultant, Magda Uribe. So thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, Eden. Always a pleasure to connect with you, and of course, to have worked with you. So I'm pleased to share this conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Right. Well, look, there's a lot we're going to cover in this to try and make it as impactful for everyone as possible, but a little icebreaker, shall we say. So I know that we're not in the talent acquisition function today. So obviously we're coming into this conversation from a different perspective, but I'm still curious, you know, even though you're not there, what do you see from your own perspective as maybe the biggest struggle that TA teams might be facing today?
Well, I'm already out of that topic, but since I worked in it for so many years, and you know, over my network, and of course following LinkedIn, I kind of get an idea about that topic. From my perspective, I think one of the biggest issues that companies are currently facing for talent acquisition is the expectations topic. I think companies are facing like a kind of a shortage of skilled workers, but that's always been the case. Also, when I was active, that's always been the case. There are really high expectations trying to find the perfect candidate, and then the market shows another reality. So there's always been this mismatch, and it's kind of companies don't land from it. And really to round the problem, it comes the topic of the different expectations that candidates are currently having when it comes to companies. So I really think that these two set of expectations need to come together in a more realistic, authentic, and human way.
So they kind of clash in what companies want, what candidates truly want. They're a little bit not aligned at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that kind of leads somewhat into, from your side, self-discovery, self-improvement and things like that. And obviously in today's topic of, personal branding, it all kind of interlinks, in my opinion, in the sense of what do people truly want? And it's only about understanding yourself. Do you know what you truly want? And, the topic of today is personal branding. And there is a clear, distinct difference between the personal brand and what we've discussed before as the employer brand. So we'll talk upon that in a moment. But let's just set the scene for anybody that's listening. What the hell do we mean by personal brand? What is it at its core? Let's say that.
Yeah, I love to go back to the definition because that gives us more clarity about it. What I did in the last days prior to our conversation was to research a little bit about the origins of personal branding, and I was super pleased to read. I mean, there have been like big figures in the history of our humanity that apparently use a very similar approach to what it means to brand yourself somehow. So especially politicians, and it's said that people like Winston Churchill or Napoleon, they use in a very strategic way their image to achieve their goals. So the concept arose around 1997. There is a writer of really great books around excellence and leadership, Tom Peters, and he wrote an article, which, by the way, you can find a PDF on the web. The article is called "The Brand Called You." So it is a really compelling article. He was like the first person who came up with this idea of, this importance of individuals viewing themselves like as brands, and also taking into their hands their own reputation, their visibility, how they can distinct themselves from others, especially in the workplace. So this is more or less like the origins of conceptualizing more this idea of branding a person. In the end, it you can approach it from different perspectives. I mean, you can say, okay, is this shameless self-promotion, or is this humble self-promotion, or is this you trying to influence how others perceive you? This is also another part. Or is this are you bragging? You can see from so many different perspectives. But I think another very interesting view of this is what Jeff Bezos said about personal branding is what people say about you when you leave the room. So it is all about perception. It is all about what is your blueprint, what is what people say about you when you leave the room or where you are into the room, the ones that are working with you. So it's basically, is the brand of who you are, is what makes you you.
Yeah, I think that's by the way, the selfless plug, things like that. I mean, people who are watching, not listening, you'll notice I've got a Peritus jumper, a Peritus mug, which I sip periodically. Obviously, I work for Peritus, so my personal brand is intertwined with Peritus as I co-own the company. However, employer branding, personal branding are different. And even through the branding that I do, I try to make a distinction. There's Peritus related stuff, but my TikTok, for example, is mine. It's not the company's. My LinkedIn, it's about my side, not the company. So there's crossovers for the right reasons. But let's try and kind of make that distinction, because I think a lot of TAs listening will probably fall into branding thinking employer branding, whereas we're coming at this conversation from no. we're talking about you as the individual. So what are the key differences between personal and employer branding?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a great question and a great way to approach this topic. I mean, I used to work a lot into employer branding, and I loved it. It gave me a lot of room for creativity and promoting the company that I so much loved to work in, or the companies. There are some elements that both employer branding and personal branding share, because both are about promotion. The employer branding is all about promoting the organization, promoting the company, the values, the culture, what it feels like working for that company with this specific, for creating this specific product or services, and putting it out there for candidates, also for the employees, or for the external stakeholders, whereby personal branding is also about promoting, but more individually. Both have a very common aim, which is about attracting. Yeah. And this is something that for sure, since both share that, you can combine them and leverage the beauty of bringing them both together figuring out what could be like a good formula for companies to enhance their employer branding and at the same time promote through their employees their personal branding. So I think that there are great opportunities for companies to bring both together. So both about promoting the organization, promoting the company, but also allowing, people, companies are all about people. And I know by my own experience that, we were always very keen on finding great personalities, not only the people who do the job right or who have the experience that the companies are looking for, but also personalities, characters. And when people can act as ambassadors of an organization by promoting the company, but also sharing some knowledge, sharing some activities or initiatives or lessons learned within the company, I think that it's a win-win situation, puts the organization in a very good light, as well as the promotion of employees for a common purpose.
I think they're so intertwined that I do think people forget sometimes that, holy crap, LinkedIn is mine. I can be myself, and I don't have to just keep putting branded stuff out all the time. I don't have to just keep showing jobs. I can actually have a voice. And for those who don't know, by the way, LinkedIn, unless it's a LinkedIn recruiter license, is 100% yours. A company cannot take your LinkedIn basic off you if it's signed up to your email address. And if it's not, you can change it behind the scenes. Just let you know that one. There's a guy that I know. His name's called Sam Merrin. I will tag him. Likely, he's brilliant at this. So you wouldn't necessarily know, unless you catch him on the right day, what company he works at, because he's very personal branding on it. But he does it in such a way that you look at his profile, then you see who he works at, and then there's material there about him. But he's really authentic. So, for example, the picture you put up today, he's massive into work-life balance, as we all should be. But the picture you put up today was just him holding his dog, talking about working flexible and having a chance to take your dog for a walk. But that's his personal brand, and like he loves a dog picture, so you start resonating dog pictures with him and things like that. And he's built up a decent following now. So in the UK, we have something called the RL 100, which is like a top 100 internal talent acquisition specialist. He's part of that group. He's part of, rub shoulders with the right people to elevate a career. And that's all through personal branding. But he still does the employer branding as well. He just does it way more subtly, but they link so closely together. So as you're talking about, he was a prime example. I was thinking, who do I know that does this really well? There's quite a few actually that I think we could probably tag into this. That's kind of the element, is that we don't just have to be the company, we can be ourselves, because let's be honest, we're not going to die at our companies. We're going to move on at some point. So we might as well leverage our own brand so we don't have to start from scratch every time. So I'm curious to kind of talk about actual practical methods on doing that. How can we actually discover our own personal brand, regardless of being an internal talent acquisition, being a sales manager, being whoever, right? Regardless of what job, what frameworks or practical methods have you kind of deployed over your career that has allowed you to discover what your brand is today?
Yeah. Well, there is I was having some thoughts about that. I mean, there is a very simple framework that I would love to share here that has three very easy to digest elements. So the first one is be, the second is do, and the third one is have. So it basically boils down to, first of all, you need to be and embody, that person or those characteristics or those traits that will elevate your image to put yourself in the place where you want to be. But it really starts by you. So you need to start with you, defining what is that identity that you want to evolve from the person that you are now. It is not about creating a fake person of you or copying anyone else, because it's not going to be authentic. You really need to stick to your own nature and essence. But you need to define, okay, what are the things where I can refine myself? What are the things in terms of my communication that I can improve? If I want to be here, what would I need to be? What kind of person do I need to be? How would I need to talk? How do I need to behave? How can I put myself out there? So that is the first stage, to be.
Before you move on, just to understand that a second. So am I going to go and find this through researching and taking little bits from other people and working out, I like that, I don't like that? Or am I locking myself in a room and not coming out until I have this epiphany? How do I find what I want to be?
Okay, so we're going to stop there. And I appreciate your question, because...
Have I jumped in? I've jumped in too
No,
soon.
I love it. Came just in time, Eden. Thank you so much, because I wanted to share what needs to happen before you move to assess the B.
Okay.
I usually, like, what people do is like, I'm going to set myself a goal for this year, or I want to do this year. But before the goal, I am convinced that you need to take a couple of steps back. Yeah. And I really like to start by the vision. Yeah. You need to secure some time for yourselves, because it needs to be authentic, and each person has an own vision of his or her future and his loved ones in the future. You need to secure some time to self-reflect and self-inquiry about how would that vision look like in your imagination. You need to play a little bit with your imagination, and that what you envision, it's like a big goal, like a big vision that you can have. And then you understand, where you want to be. Once you understand where you want to be, that will be your North Star. This is not going to happen from today to tomorrow. It's clear. Everything needs time. Everything is a process. But once you have a clarity about that, or an idea at least, then you can say, okay, so this is like how I envision things to be. This is how I could envision myself to live or to be. Now, reality check, where I am now. Yeah. And this is the painful part, but we don't need to suffer about that. But not going through those processes of going in envisioning prevents you from maybe one day realizing them, and you're just living on the day to day. And I think it's very beautiful to go a little bit through those internal journeys and do that inner work. And then once you're back into reality, you say, okay, I envision, I know where I want to be. Even though I still don't know what needs to happen, this is my recommendation for the next step. Decide. Because you can envision whatever you want, but if you don't believe in your vision, that means nothing. You really need to take the conscious decision that it is possible. So you decide it is possible. If you have self-doubts and you have fear, we all have them, we're humans, but you always need to say to yourself, I decide myself to reach that vision one day. We don't need to know when, but we just need to take the decision. And then the third step that I believe will follow is move. So you envision, you decide, and then you move. What does it mean to move? That is where your action starts taking form. And then we go back to the do part. We talk
Right.
about be, do, and then have. Yeah. When you are in the do, you are already in the move stage. Yeah. When you are there, you already took the decision to start a process. So you need to decide, okay, so what are the moves that I can make in a smart way, to start closing the gap. You don't need to have it perfect, yeah, but let's take some steps to move towards that direction. And here's like where you can set the goal. Yeah, here's where you can say, okay, I'm ready to move. I already took the decision. I'm just going to go for that vision. Then you are like, okay, the ones that have been working with OKRs, which is like basically nowadays, basically everyone will know what does it mean to define a goal, to define an objective, something that is realistic, that is like a smart, typical goal that you can measure, that you can define over time and stuff like that. So you define your goal, and then you, for example, you can list like 10 activities that you can do against that goal. Right. When you list down that 10 activities, you can narrow it down to maybe 1, 2, 3. And when you have these 1, 2, 3 things, you say, okay, out of those 3, I'm going to choose one. You choose one, and then you just focus on that one. Yeah. And then you say, what do I need to do for me to reach this goal? Do I need to learn something? Do I need to acquire knowledge? Do I need a special exposure? Okay, I'm going to talk to my manager, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to bring myself here. So you start to bring yourself into this motion. You are moving yourself into the realization of the milestones that you created. And when you less expect it, you look back and you're like, oh, I already achieved this. I already achieved that. And things like that. So yeah, this is like a very simple way to see it. And again, going back to the be, do, and then the last one is have. Because undoubtedly, once you have been doing your work, you will have. Guaranteed. Because things will unfold in front of you, and you need to trust that process.
So the B, I'm envisioning what I want. This is where I want to get to, and I'm identifying who's the person that has that. That's the B I need to become.
Yes.
So I'm going to identify, for me to have that life, for my family, for myself, for what I want to achieve. This is the life. This is the person I need to truly become. I need to become a better active listener, salesperson, empathetic, whatever, right? Then that's going to become my North Star. I then get into the do motion of starting to create these processes behind the scenes. And there's actually a book, as you were saying it, I was typing, if you saw my hand moving, because I couldn't remember. All I remember was 1%. I don't know if you've heard it, the 1% rule.
No.
All right. It's a bloody good book. So the 1% rule, guy called Tommy Baker, because I couldn't remember who the author was.
I know. I didn't read it, but I know what the theory is all about. Yeah.
Same sort of setup as you're saying there. Take your goals, strip most of them back, focus on the 1%. That is the part that you start moving. And then essentially his philosophy is you fall in love with the process. You don't fall in love with the end result. You love the process, and that's what keeps driving you. Because then when you have the haves, what's the next thing? Because you don't just stop that. And that's when you become addicted to goal setting. So that's the framework that we've created. And we deploy this then back to the topic of personal branding, right? So bringing it back into our own lives, personal branding obviously can be applicable both inside and outside the organization, right? So what is the actual, I guess, let's break them down. Where, first of all, before we go into hows, but where is it actually applicable for us? If we take a look inside an organization, how can we brand ourselves better to better our careers? And then the same question from the outside perspective as well. Once we've identified the B's and the do's, I guess we're now working out how do we get those haves.
Yes, sure. Yeah, I mean, when you are currently inside an organization or inside a company, then you can decide to bring yourself out and show yourself as a brand. So, I mean, you can do a couple of things, and this is also part of the goals that you can set for yourself, the goals that are realistic that you can realize within the organization. You can do various things, like, for instance, I one very important thing that you need to be aware is that you need to work on your presence. Yeah, because you need to put yourself out there. Yeah, you need to put yourself out there either physically,
Mhm.
or virtually. But you need to put yourself out there. Yeah, in form of words, in form of actions, in form of whatever. But you need to do it. So one of the things that you can do is like say, okay, I'm going to be like a employer brand ambassador, as an example. Yeah, I'm just going to partner. I'm going to tell them, you know what, I want to promote because I love this company and I think it is a great opportunity for us both. So you can offer yourself, you can create some content, you can share it, but also internally within organizations, you can also decide, you know what, I want to discover my leadership qualities because I know inside myself that I can do that. And also maybe I would love to develop professional in this direction. So you put yourself in this uncomfortable place of trying new things, or having the right exposure, and then you can demonstrate your leadership qualities. You don't need to be a manager to do that. Leadership is like, you can show it with initiative, or grouping some people, or throwing out an idea, or throwing out a question that becomes maybe like a new feature or whatever. So there is a great opportunity to stand out, and voice yourself. You can also like internally work on building your relationships, expanding your network within the company, having exposure with people from all the departments. Maybe there's a domain that you have always been curious about, and then you just like take the opportunity, go to the office, connect with people. Always connecting with people is a good opportunity to show yourself a little bit more, especially now in times where people tend to work more at home. Then people could have a very wrong perception about who you are. So you just put yourself out there and show yourself with the best that you can offer professionally and humanly. And yeah, I mean, you can also do things like sharing knowledge. I mean, we have a lot of very knowledgeable people in companies, so you can share your knowledge, your expertise, participate in those knowledge sharing sessions or lunch and learn sessions. Basically, you volunteer, you put yourself out there, you are part of initiatives. So these are the kind of things that you can do, and you can combine that. With also some external ways to show your brand, like, okay, we were talking before, creating online presence. Yeah, you can combine it with sharing some lessons learned from an activity where you took part of. What was your part? What did you observe from other peers? You promote yourself, but you promote also some experiences, some work experiences that where others can profit from. Also creating some content, also being part of networking activities where you show yourself. I mean, again, we go back always to the topic of presence and visibility. So yeah, these are things where you can be active. And yeah, I think that you this is not a journey that you have to do on your own. I think it would be lovely and beautiful if, for instance, you were able to partner, for instance, with the people teams of the organizations, or with your manager, where you vocalize your aspirations, and the manager is into supporting you and facilitates the spaces and the exposure that will help you to really leverage your goal, where also the company can profit from. So, I mean, there is great opportunity for creating some human partnerships within companies, and I think that's a beautiful way to work, not in a competitive way, but in a collaborative way. Because when we see that there's always a win-win solution, you just need to figure out and again see how things unfold.
Yeah, I love that point, by the way, when we're talking about presence, and we'll come back to presence in a second, because we do always have to reflect back on it. But it's I think when people look at personal branding, and I know I did when I first did it, I always thought it was like content. I have to put things out online. That's how people are going to recognize me. And that is one element. It is an element, just one. But as you're saying there, from a career development perspective, even just having more closer communication with different teams inside your business, having an interest in certain topics, your name then starts circulating around different conversations that might not have done before. And personal branding can start, and we'll talk about certain ways how we can get it going in a moment, but it doesn't have to start with this huge campaign of podcast, right? Don't get me wrong, I love doing this podcast. I really do. I get to learn so much, but you don't have to go to this level. You don't have to write blogs. You could just simply put a small post up on the intranet of your company and see what happens, and start that ball movement from there. But the presence is key. I'm not going to give the answer because I'm curious for your knowledge. So why, because you said we keep coming back to presence, why is the presence, or why is being present in the process important?
Yeah. Again, it's all about what makes you you. If others don't have the opportunity to know who you are, then there's going to be, again, a wrong perception about you. Yeah. And the only way that others will know about who you are is that you really need to move out yourself out of the comfort zone and put yourself out there. It can be in a subtle way. And I understand that for some people, especially the people that our society calls the introverts, could have some uneasiness about putting themselves a little bit more out there. But I think we live in a world where we should embrace and welcome everyone, especially in this world where we talk so much about diversity, inclusion, belonging. It is about honoring first and foremost who we are, with everything that we come with and we take with us, our unicity. Yeah, this that what makes us special. There is too much self-doubt, and the only way to go out of that is just like leave behind your fears and just be yourself, because we only have this life for it. So why not? You can be an introverted person, but you can, I promise you that you ask a colleague, hey, are you going to go to the office? When do you go? Because I would love to learn from you this, or, hey, I had this idea and I would love to share it with someone. I value so much your perspective. How about we meet next month in the office? And that is a great opportunity to connect. I think that one of the reasons why there is so much disconnect is because we're not meeting in person as humans. And even if you don't have an appointment with a colleague in the office, you can go there. And I promise you, in the kitchen, you're going to have a nice conversation with someone. And more often than not, I engaged into projects or ideas or whatever that came out of nothing. So there is a lot of value into these physical human encounters. And we just need to be conscious of it and maybe just say, you know what, I'm just going to go to the office to see what happens today. Yeah. And I'm just going to speak with my manager about something that I'm curious about, just to see where does this take me? It's just letting your curiosity a space for you to be, for you to experience, and again, putting yourself out there physically. You never know when you're going to have like a beautiful experience, and maybe there's nothing, but it's always nice to change. So I think presence is key, but it really needs to start with, again, your decision. I decide to show myself up and experience my presence so that others can also get to know you better, and the perception about you is going to change for sure.
I like that you acknowledge as well that not every idea, not every piece of content is going to work. Yeah. And it's just also just giving that opportunity to put yourself out there. Unless you're Kim Kardashian, everything you post is scrutinized over a magnifying glass. Let's be honest, people listen to this podcast, it's not. So it doesn't matter if you post something that performs poorly. It is what it
It's
is.
not about the likes, Eden. It is not about the
Oh,
likes. Like,
exactly.
because I have my artistic side and I want to be free. And those are spaces, for instance, LinkedIn, that allow you to be you. I post myself because I have constantly thoughts about humanity and about development and about sustainability and about where this planet is heading to and things like that. And sometimes I have a lot of ideas to post on things. And sometimes I post something not just for the sake of getting a response or whatever, but I just want to throw an idea out
But that's
there.
your personal brand, and that's
Yeah.
the beauty of what we're saying, that over time
Yes.
that becomes who you are, or
Yeah.
that's your authentic self that you're now projecting out there, and people start recognizing it. And just for example, this podcast, right? The intention was never to really become a podcast host out of it. I mean, I know it sounds stupid because I'm the host, but the idea was just to learn from people. And
Mm.
now I get messages from other people who want to join as a guest, which is bizarre because I spent so long trying to reach out to people. Now people are coming to me. I just find that mental. Um, so, but that's the personal brand now, is that's how my brand has evolved over
Mm.
time to
Yeah.
be a podcast
Mm.
host for talent
Yeah.
acquisition.
It's beautiful
It,
because really what you're sharing here is precisely what I'm saying. You decided to be like a podcast host, to give some visibility to your company. Yeah. And then you started to move, you created some movement by inviting some people like me. Thank you so much. And now you come to the stage of having effortlessly, because you already, like in a very metaphysical way, created that space that is already existent and that already offers value and contribution, and people want to be part of that. People want to join it.
yeah,
So it
it
is
creates this own
even the magic
organic
of
thing
things
now.
involved, but you need to make the first move. You need to take the decision.
And
Yeah.
it takes a while as well. I think that one's also key. You hear all these, it was a 7-year overnight success. I love that phrase, or something similar to it, because I think people just forget branding. Doesn't matter if it's personal, employer, or marketing, branding for a product. It takes time. Rarely does it happen first time and goes viral and all that sort of stuff. Like, it's going to take a while to understand, who am I? You'll probably get it wrong. You'll iterate, still get it wrong, iterate, and you'll just keep going through that cycle. And then eventually you start seeing these little pockets of, that's working. Okay, I'm going to lean more into it, or I'm enjoying it. I'm going to lean more into that, and that's where it starts to become enjoyable and, as you
Mm.
say, authentic self.
Mm.
Since
Totally.
you mentioned LinkedIn, I've mentioned the podcast as two platforms that I mean I use LinkedIn as well. I know you're quite active on LinkedIn yourself. Is there any other platforms that you would recommend people maybe lean into a little bit or explore, or would you say that's probably the nice easy
Mm.
one to
Yeah.
step into, shall we
Yeah.
say?
Well, I'm a little bit out, so I might not know like the latest developments when it comes to platforms where you can promote yourself or enhance your visibility. But of course, LinkedIn, like this is like it's a free option for all of us to freely share some content, some participate in some discussions. Have some contacts, connect with new people. This is for sure in the professional realm, the big one. I mean, others use Twitter. It's also like a very short form of transmitting a message or sharing some insights. If X is also something that will speak your heart, that's also an interesting platform for people who, as an example, like to write content that is a little bit longer, and want to write some articles or share like a little bit more long form text content. You can use like platforms like Medium, where you can share some articles and things like that. And of course, the ones that feel more comfortable in front of the cameras, like use YouTube, it's the video that also creates another feeling with the audience. That is very much into images, visual and video. So yeah, but that's not for everyone, for sure. And it really depends on your specific domain. I mean, if you are a tech person, I know that there are communities and exchange and among tech people, for instance, in platforms like Stack Overflow, or for instance, you have Hacker News or GitHub. There are communities that are really encouraging the exchange, from the very specific domains. For creatives, I mean, typically you have the Behance or you have Dribble, but also Adobe has like a cloud community where you can contribute, where you can put yourself out there. So, I mean, again, we're in times where all information is available. Once you decided to put yourself out there, start choosing like one platform. I really recommend not to be widespread everywhere, but just focus on one. See how it goes, and then maybe if you happen to create something of value where people start following you in an organic way, then you can see how can you replicate those messages into other platforms. But I mean, it's a matter of looking for the right community for you to create the resonance.
I think that's the key is, don't get overwhelmed because there's so much.
Yeah.
And I fall trap of that, right? To be honest with you. So here we go, right? So I use LinkedIn. Bear in mind, I've got to do the company one and the personal, but let's just do my personal. So I've got LinkedIn. I write the blog for our website, which was also, we do podcasts for Spotify, Apple, and we post on YouTube. We do YouTube Shorts. I do TikTok. And I do Medium. So that's
my God, that's a lot of work.
7 platforms. Well, I mean, the good news is most of it can be multi-distributed, so it's not the end of the world.
Absolutely.
But it's interesting because I get different responses. So blog, for example, on Medium, I have a very small following. I also haven't really put that much time into it. You have to nurture. I just post. I don't connect. I don't comment. I just post. But on the flip side, our website, same blog, same content. Each blog, it performs dramatically better on the website. So obviously that one makes it more sense to spend more time there. TikTok is quite new, so I'm still getting my hands on it. I'm only 2 weeks into doing it, of recording this. So once this goes live, I'll see what my TikTok is like. But the content on there is about the stuff I post on LinkedIn, but in video format. So it's just working out what it is. But it can become overwhelming. So I do agree. I started with the blog. That was it. Just purely the blog on our website, outside of my normal LinkedIn. And then over time have added where I felt, okay, I've got grips there. I know what I'm doing. Now let's trial this. I think as well, going back to that be, do, have element, I think, and it's easier because obviously running our own company, like I said, I'm intertwined so heavily with it. My personal brand, my employer brand, kind of lots, sometimes too much, but that's my own doing. But I recognized when I first set up the B was I want people to recognize who we are as a company, who I am as an individual, and going out to market with no experience in the sense of as a company, individual experience. It was so challenging to do that. So I was thinking, okay, I want people to associate us to this word, this word, this word, and everything we're doing is just drumming in the same message. And then obviously the do is creating behind it. The haves are coming. They haven't all come yet, but they're coming. But that's the link. So the personal brand does work on that element. It's just takes time.
Yeah, it takes time. And I think that's one of the things that it's important to keep in mind. We humans are extremely impatient. Yeah. And I think, again, I go back to my topic of metaphysics. Everything starts with an idea. Then as you progress throughout the process, things start taking form. We need to be in peace with the process. We live in a world that is all the time rushing things, wanting to get things done as soon as possible, and we're not even enjoying the process, and then making some mistakes on the way for delivering things so quickly. So I really think that we can put things at the right pace, but at the same time, we need to be patient with the end result. Because as you said, you just design thinking process or design doing process. You create something, you put it out there, you test it, you see how it went, you gather some feedback, and then you iterate again based on that feedback. So if we start seeing things more from the process perspective, we would be less hard with ourselves. And for that, we need patience, because we know things will never be perfect from today till tomorrow. So go with flow, go through the process consciously, and always iterating for improvements. And at the point, again, now you can say, I look back and look in how many platforms we are currently. Even TikTok. I mean, I would have never thought that you would have been TikTok.
It took a while. It took a while. I'm not saying I love it personally, but I mean, more for the fact because my friends see it as well, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Trust the process." I believe HR and talent acquisition specialists, and please correct me, anyone who's listening, if you don't use TikTok, tell me so I can stop. But I believe personally, people will look at TikTok at some point as education. Personally, I believe that, because I think
Mm.
you take a look, people do it for fitness videos, they do it for cooking, they do it
Yes.
for
Yes.
DIY. So why
Yeah.
not for career development? So I'm sitting there thinking, at
Yeah.
some point, I think it's going to switch more to education than dancing. And when that
Mm.
happens, I'm going to have a bank of talent acquisition, HR, these conversations loaded already that people can then look and go, holy shit, that's some good information.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah, you're making me curious. Maybe I also jump into TikTok. I was not assessing that possibility.
Well, I'll let you know how it goes. Like I said, it's early doors. There was something you said earlier, Magda. You mentioned about leadership and giving us the chance to work with leaders to kind of formulate our own personal brand. To close this off, because I am curious, how can leaders, and especially for those who are listening, how can we support the process of individuals finding their own personal brand?
Yeah. I think this is very beautiful to approach this, because, I mean, after my 15 years working in talent acquisition and also in people management, dealing with a lot of managers, leaders, and executives, one of the things that were recurrent was this fear that managers have about losing their people. So there is a lot of fear within organizations, which I understand the reasons behind, but at the same time, I think it's not the right energy, let's say, to bring into the table. So when managers are so territorial about their team members, that creates a friction that and also fear within the team. So I think the first thing that managers would need to do, or leaders need to do, the people who have like people responsibility, would be to partner more with people and understand them more about what they want. See them as humans. We all humans have the right to evolve. By the way, before I continue, I really want to share on this. On this conversation, there is a wonderful video on YouTube that is a rabbi, and that talks about how lobsters grow. And the title, I mean, you can search on YouTube, is called "How Do Lobsters Grow?" And this is a beautiful story that, like, is a teaching from nature, about what needs to happen, for you to grow. And it's basically like the lobster changes its shelf as it grows. And I think it's on that video he refers to distressful situations or threats from nature. So I'm not from that point of view. Of course, that happens, that there is growth when there has been distress in your life, but at the same time, when you want to grow organically, you need to accept that you need to change your shell. And this is a little bit part of the message also with your personal branding. How do you change that shell to a shell that allows you to move more freely within it? So, and managers, if they connect with, from the human perspective, with their people, to understand, where does this person want to go? How does this person can evolve best? We all have the right to evolve. Then it would be a matter of like being less territorial and being more human, creating human partnerships within organizations where managers are all about supporting, where managers are about opening the spaces for creating exposure for them, for facilitating cross collaboration, maybe with other departments, or facilitating training opportunities for people to evolve and develop in the direction that they want. I understand that there's conflict when companies want one thing and employees want have another kind of aspirations, and that's where the manager needs to be a cushion there. But still, there is a lot that managers can do. Promote the collaboration, encourage visibility, coach them throughout the way. I mean, someone who has already reached the role of a manager knows that it's a process. You need someone that trusts you. You need someone who believes in you, so you can give that back to your team and really dissolve that fear of your team being dismantled, because in the end, we're all humans having an experience here, and work is where we spend most of our time, and we can make it more human from that point of view, really acknowledging how can I allow and help this person thrive.
I think ultimately, just to tie on that part as well, if you do that to your team, the fear of they're going to be leaving me will dissipate very quickly, because
Yes,
they'll be so engaged, they'll be so bought in to you as a leader, providing nothing drastic happens across the company.
sure.
It's about just really taking that step back and going, how can I help this person? How can they help me? And it's that trade-off. I always find it peculiar when you hear about, awful onboarding processes, awful hiring processes, awful experiences in candidates and companies. I'm like, there's a trade-off. You sell your skills for money, but the time that you both spend together should benefit both parties, in my opinion. You build the product, they build you. That's the partnership. That's the contract you're truly signing, not the time versus money. But on that, Magda, I really appreciate you spending some time and obviously going through that framework. So what we'll do is obviously we'll link to your socials, so anyone obviously who wants to can come follow your posts, can connect with you, can learn a little bit more, and take it from there. But thank you so much for taking the time. I love this topic. It's such a passion of mine as well. So I'm thrilled personally to have obviously heard from you and kind of got to listen as a listener, I guess. But thank you.
I thank you, Eden. It was a pleasure talking to you, also hearing your experience, your stories. And I think it's what's all about. We being our own experiment, putting ourselves out there and really seeing how can we become what we want to become. So I really enjoyed very much this conversation, and I congratulate you for this podcast. I think you're delivering a lot of value. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Thank you.